several leaders from our area, fresh back from a trade mission, a business mission over to China. Keith Patridge with McAllen Economic Development joining us on the Morning News. How's the jet lag doing, Keith? How you doing? How you feeling?
Doing well, Sergio.
Okay. Did we land any businesses, any jobs for McAllen on that visit to China?
Well, not yet, but the trip, I think it was an excellent trip. We had lots of interest, and we've already received 2 phone calls from them. So on companies that are very interested and with questions and things. So I think it was a very, very good trip.
Where did you go? Who did you visit for how many days?
Well, we visited a number of companies. We have NDAs signed with them, so we can't mention names. But we flew from McAllen to Beijing, and then from Beijing we went to Ningxi, and then from there we went to Shenzhen, and then Hong Kong.
Why China, Keith? Are we hoping to pluck some manufacturing from China, bring it back to the U.S.?
Well, one of the things that we're seeing is, and it was confirmed with our visit, is President Trump's 301 tariffs against Chinese products is definitely having an impact in China. They are the companies recognize that in order to be competitive in this marketplace, with the 301 tariffs, they really have to look at options, and so that's one issue. Second is also the Trump administration renegotiation of NAFTA, the new USMCA with the higher regional value content requirement, and particularly in the automotive industry, the 40% at $16 an hour requirement are all things that they're looking at as well. So even if the 301 duty tariffs go away, they're still looking at USMCA really almost requires them to locate in the United States.
Okay.
And the third thing is costs are definitely going up in China. And so as those costs go up, they're less competitive. And they're also seeing the same thing we are, that as we continue to technology continues to bring more automation, robotics, and artificial intelligence into the manufacturing equation, then the low-cost labor cost kind of goes away. And they're recognizing all that. We had a seminar in Shenzhen that was sponsored by the Shenzhen government. And we had about 80 to 90 people there from various technology companies. Shenzhen's a very technology-based city, so most of them were technology companies.
Keith Patridge, McAllen Economic Development, fresh back from China. They were on a trade mission.
Keith, Tim Sullivan here. Could I get you to elaborate a little bit? What does that mean? 301 tariffs, meaning that Chinese companies have to look at options. Does that mean that are the Trump tariffs prompting China to look at the Texas border region?
Yes, they are. And they're looking at what their options are, Tim, as far as what they can do to avoid. And, of course, the 301 tariff is a 25% additional duty that was levied against about, at least right now, half of the products that are sold in the United States from China. So that 25% tariff is that really impacts their ability to be competitive in the market. And so one of the things that we see when you use the USMCA, you use the border region where you can bring components in bond. You can do part of the work on the U.S. side. You can do work on the Mexico side, go through what's called tariff shifts. And that's a fairly technical term that we don't have time to talk about. But when you start looking at shifting tariffs where it loses its Chinese identity and becomes a Mexico product or a U.S. product.
Wow.
And we had a pretty substantial a conversation with one company in particular that is what they wanted, and we got into a very technical discussion with them, and the company was ecstatic when we left, and they said that's definitely where we need to be.
Wow, so they would lose their Chinese brand once they came to the border? Or?
Oh, no, they would not lose their Chinese brand. The name would still be whatever the product name would be, but it would just be a product that would be made in Mexico rather than in China.
So no names?
It would go through excuse me?
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But it would lose its Chinese identity through what's called a tariff shift.
So it's made in China, it would say made in Mexico, and that'd be part of the trade agreement around here.
That's correct.
So
yes.
no company names. You're not naming any names, but you're talking about like technology manufacturing type of companies.
Yes. And these we met with, and this was what was, I think, really rewarding about the trip is the group that we're working with, or the people that we're working with in China. We met with the highest level executives in all of these companies. These were not. This was either the number 1, 2, or 3, or sometimes all 3 of the top senior management in the companies.
That's an intriguing sign.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah, yes, very, very much so. And we were welcomed with open arms. And what was also interesting is that everything was conducted in English. We had translators, but most everything was in English.
Your first trip to China, I know there's been a McAllen delegation that's gone to Asia, South Korea. Is this your first trip to China?
No, I've actually been going to China since 1980.
Oh.
Or rather, yes, 1980. And that was my first trip, and we've been going off and on since. The last time that we went prior to this trip was in 2005. But we've been sensing that with as I say, the tariff situation, the duty or the USMCA, the increasing costs in China, that the timing was right, and I think our trip really proved that was the case.
Have you been able to pick up some of the language over the years?
A little bit, just some keywords.
Keith Patridge. Ni hao, Keith Patridge. Yeah. So, how quickly might we see some fruit from all this? Maybe some firms. How many jobs? How many firms do you think realistically? How quickly and how much?
Well, I don't know, Sergio. We really, these things, typically a company takes about 18 months from the time that we first contact them. I believe that we could see faster movement than that, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Is it going to require some support from Texas or EDC incentive, something like that?
I suspect that they will be looking at incentives, and we'll see what those are and how
save on the tariff incentive enough. Save on the tariff incentive enough, don't you think?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, that's a big one.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Thank you, Keith.
Best of luck, Keith.
From McAllen Economic Development, Keith Patridge.